what's dry farming? Dry farming is a process of growing vegetables without any water. It is generally done where the seeds and vegetables are planted really deep within the soil. Can also be kind of done too in some raised beds, and it is where you don't water at all throughout the summers. If you have a summer that has rain freely, it works wonderful for you. But if you're in a place like California or the west coast of the US, wherever it doesn't really have summer rains, this is a method that really helps you save water. But you generally need to have a soil that will be able to give your plant the nutrients and the water that it needs. If you have clay soil and you pretty much are going to be digging a foot down and mixing in some compost, worm castings in, and then we'll show you how to plant the tomatoes. But if your ground is wet, you can actually get a whole season of tomatoes. Certain varieties are specific for this, and I will mention that a bit later too. But you can definitely grow tomatoes without any water. It's absolutely possible to do. So we have our trench that's dug about a foot already, and we've mixed in some compost with the clay soil. So you're going to get these beads of clay in. And this is really going to be what holds in a lot of water. We're going to get that in there. And then we have this variety. This is an early girl tomato, and it is a very true tested variety that works excellent for dry farming. And yep, we have some flowers here. So you want to pinch out the flowers just for now while it establishes, because you want it to develop a good root structure. The root structure is what's going to make dry farming these tomatoes possible. And you also want to pinch out the lower sets of leaves. And you can see it's already getting some roots going in there. This is planted in a compost mix, seed starting mix. And you're going to get it in there and then just cover it up on the sides. Right, so we have our tomatoes planted. We did them about 18 inches apart. And as you can see, they're still in the trench in there. And that's because we want to start them deep. And as they grow taller, we're going to be pushing the soil in and hilling them. And as we do that, we're going to be taking out the bottom sets of leaves. This is going to help the tomatoes be nice and strong. It's going to help their root structure. But since we just planted them, we do need to water them. That's very important. After they get established, you cut off the water completely. Rain, obviously, is fine, but you aren't going to be needing to water them at all until after they end up getting fully established. And it's just going to be a few inches of water. So let's get that going. Here they are a couple weeks after they were planted. They're now fully hilled with the soil that we had in the trench. And straw has been placed around to keep the soil moist and not letting it dry out too much. So if you don't have clay soil or you only have raised beds to work with, there is a way that you can essentially have dry farm tomatoes but in a raised bed, and it contains a lot of compost. So for the last few years, I've been testing out dry farming or seeing how long I can go without watering the tomatoes in this bed. So the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from testing it in a variety of different places in my property, it's heavy amounts of compost. That's going to hold on to the water, and straw. You need to have a good heavy amount of mulch on the top, and what I've found works the best and holds the water in the longest without letting any of the soil dry out, it's alfalfa. Alfalfa is technically considered a hay. It's great for animal food, and it has worked out wonderfully for tomatoes. And once it breaks down, it actually adds nitrogen soil. Alfalfa is an excellent cover crop, and it's something that's been really, really wonderful for the tomatoes in this bed. The ones that are currently planted here, I planted them probably about a week ago now, and I watered it in twice. The compost that was in here, I had added compost and cover crops over the winter, and they have been in here, only have gone in twice of watering, and have been doing fantastic. In the way that I plant these out, it's very similar to how I showed early on in the video with doing it on clay soil, directly in the soil. And I pretty much plant a plant about this size, and everything from here down, it's all in the bed. So this works really, really great for very deep raised beds. If you're going to do a shallower bed, if you can, go very deep into the soil. Otherwise, you're going to need to elevate that bed so the tomato can get as much of its roots and stem within the bed, so you can get a bigger root structure. So I take off all of the lower leaves and bury the whole thing down in a lot of compost. And as I'm planting it, I'm also planting it with a good amount of worm castings in, as well as fishbone meal and kelp meal. And I will deep water them once they go in, and then water a few more times. And afterwards, I only water when it's necessary. I try to have these beds hold as much water as possible with all the amounts of compost and the heavy amount of mulching. But I think in the hottest amount that we had last year, I pretty much only watered it a couple times. During the summer, I was pretty much going about 2.5 weeks to 3 weeks without needing to water the tomatoes, and that wasn't the same situation for the rest of my beds. There were a couple tomatoes that I tried to see how they would do in a bed that was pretty much composed of potting soil and cocoa coir with very light amounts of compost in it, and that also did really well. However, it was a paste tomato in there. For this bed, I have usually tried out my hand at slicers. Cherry tomatoes have done really well. This year I have a combination of slicers, cherry tomatoes. Hi, Napoleon! Come say hi. I have a combination of cherry tomatoes, slicers, and some paste tomatoes. There are some determinate tomatoes out in the front, and we're gonna see how they do. I'm very excited to keep you updated on this, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to how things are going to play out. And if you want to see more about this, just let me know and I can do more updates on the garden as a whole. But it is very possible to grow tomatoes without needing a ton of water, and being able to utilize what you have on hand with compost and tons of mulch, and be able to get nice fruitful harvests. And the thing with dry farming that I love the most is how sweet you get the tomatoes to be. They're going to be unbelievably sweet and juicy. The skins might be a little bit tougher than what you're used to for tomatoes. They're constantly getting pumped with water, but the sweetness level is something that cannot be beat. So let me know in the comments if this is something that you want to see more of, and I will keep you guys up to date on everything that's going on in the garden. See you next time. Hope you have a wonderful day.